It's been a while. We haven't done one of these in forever, have we? It's been almost over a month.
I Either over a month or right at it. It's been a hectic time of year for both of us, that's for sure.
Yeah. The reason, like you just said, we've been super busy, and we're both teaching a high school where we live. We both work. I started my graduate class for this semester, and Evan's given a bunch of lessons, so we haven't exactly had as much time to do this as we would have liked. But
Technically, we don't even really have time to do it right now, but we're making it work.
Yeah, if you've noticed, we probably sound a little different. I am at my house, and Evan is at his house. We finally figured out and got set up how to record remotely, which I'm excited about because it's going to let us record with a wider range of guests that don't really live within driving distance. Like our friend Dan Shack's up in Delaware, Travis Peterman's on the East Coast, know some people out in California we could have on, so I think it could open up a lot of doors. And obviously, if the audio is not perfect for this one, we're still tweaking things and trying to get the settings the way we want them and blah, blah, blah. So,
yeah, dude, I'm excited just because it makes it easier on us. We can probably do them more frequently. If there's something that pops up, we don't have to be like, oh, man, we live an hour away. We'll have to wait till the next time we get together. We just be like, hey, you got 30 minutes? Call me up and we'll just like talk about it and then get it out there.
Yep, it'll be good. Now that I think about it, I might have just figured out how to fix my voice.
It's about the same.
Hello? 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 Is it getting... Oh, fixed it. There we go.
Perfect.
So...
You don't have to be like a hunchback.
Yep. What was the last thing you just said?
We can... If something pops up, we can do it more frequently now, not have to like try to wait to get together on the weekend. We can just call each other up and be like, hey, this happened.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be an awesome way to just expand the scope of what this podcast offers to the listeners. So before we continue, welcome everyone to the Aged Out Podcast with your host, Mike Fantini, and as always,
Evan Worrell.
Yep. We're back with another episode. We have not disappeared. We just, as we said earlier, we're just been real busy. And a lot has happened over the last few weeks in drum corps. A lot of staff changes, the cymbal line controversy that was going around all over the internet, which we're going to talk about. So,
it's pretty much already dead though at this point, which is ironic.
I know. The only groups that said they were gonna, well, I guess we'll start with that. So if you didn't know, the Crossmen and wasn't it a couple other lower corps announced?
I think the Mandarins also said they weren't gonna have one.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure that's accurate.
Yeah, so basically two corps came out, said we're getting rid of our cymbal lines, and if they would have just come out and said the reason was that we just didn't want to have them anymore, I feel like there would have been less backlash.
I don't know. Really hard to say in hindsight what would have happened, but I think that the most ridiculous part about it is that people are being completely irrational in some of the references or, I don't know, things that they were talking about. I don't want to say importance because it is important, but they just weren't looking at it from an overall perspective, I feel like. And I was just like, people making allegations like, oh, cutting the cymbal line is the exact same as cutting the SCV snare line. I'm like, well, it's actually not the same. That's pretty different, and no one's going to take you seriously after you read that.
Yeah.
But
it just seems like a lot of overreacting. Cymbal lines have been fading slowly but surely over the past
especially
few
in
decades.
the outdoor activity.
Yeah, they're a big integral part of the indoor activity, but
well, they add so much visually and indoor, and it gives you more numbers to work with from a drill perspective.
Sure.
And then I think a lot of people were, and understandably so, like, oh, these cymbal players are not going to be able to have the same experience that I had, which is true. But it's kind of like, in my opinion, you can't please everybody. Those 4 or 5, 6 cymbal spots are giving cymbal player spots, but they're also taking away from either the guard or the pit or the horn line. So some horn line member, if you're only taking X number of horn line because you have cymbals, the person who's one out, he's missing out on that when he maybe would have got in if there's a couple extra spots. So really, always going to be somebody on the outside looking in. Some of the stuff was just like completely ridiculous that I was reading. I was like, oh, Cymbal are just as much as a visual part of the ensemble as the color guard. And I was like, well,
Not
no,
really.
no, they're not.
I
mean,
don't
you
think
can't
it's even
compare
close.
those.
Not
You
comparable
can't
at all.
compare those things.
No.
But yeah,
And the way the Crossmen handled it, didn't they try and say like there wasn't enough staff out there to give the members a good enough experience?
yeah, it's something along the lines of like, hey, we don't have staff that can teach, which may be true, maybe not. I'm sure people out there be like, oh, there's plenty of people that can teach the cymbal line, but maybe they weren't. I actually heard that they almost didn't have a cymbal line. It was either for the 2018 or the 2017 summer anyway, because a couple of the members quit like a week before move-ins and they couldn't fill it, so they're about to cut it then. So
Jeez.
like, oh.
Yeah, I just think it's not that big of a deal. Maybe I'm being naive, or I saw some posts of people that have been around the block a few times on social media just saying, if you think you can recreate the sound of a cymbal line in the front ensemble, you're not listening very closely. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's gonna be different. It's a different timbre, but when I was watching the Crossmen warm up in finals lot, I didn't notice a cymbal line at all. I forgot they even had one, and part of that's probably just me like being very toned in and listening to other sections that I was a part of myself.
Sure.
But at the same time, I was thinking back, man, I do not remember them having a cymbal line. And then after this all happened, I was getting on YouTube, and there was a video of a Crossman cymbal line from like, I don't know, 2014, 15, some year. It was like a 2-minute long video, and I swear for like a minute and 30 seconds of it, they didn't play anything. They were just doing visuals. I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know. But like you said, people are just somewhat of an overreaction. Not to take anything away from those people. It's great. It's awesome. Do your thing. You're getting an experience and getting to be a part of this activity. I truly get that. That's why I did it. I want to be a part of the activity. But it sucks. If you want to march cymbals, there's still some other groups that have cymbals. It's going to make those spots definitely more competitive for sure. But there's still the opportunity in some groups. So
yeah. I think you're right. So I think that's all we really need to say about that. Just Mountain
it
Out
happened.
Anthill,
Yeah.
it's already over. People will move on. It'll be okay.
I was actually texting somebody about it. I was like, well, at least the cymbal controversy kind of went away. And he was like, yeah, nothing lasts more than a week in the new like social media craze where like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing?
Sure. That's for sure. And speaking of the next things, let's jump into these staff changes. So the first one I saw was that Josh Brickey is no longer the battery coordinator for the Crossmen. And I don't think they've announced who the new one is, have they?
To my knowledge, they have not made it public. I know who it's going to be, but I'm not going to.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna bust the Crossman's timeline of when or how or who or they want to announce their staff changes. I'm not gonna blow up that spot.
It's a good choice.
But that's on them, and I'll let them tackle that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So I can't imagine Josh was pushed out, like he wasn't doing a good enough job or anything like that. It had to be just for personal reasons.
No, I think that he just wanted to pursue some other avenues of the activity, whether it's like high school or I know he's doing a lot more arranging and design stuff these days, both indoor and in the fall season with marching band and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. There's no way. I mean, the Crossman, the battery got better. Every single there, he was there for the 4-year span. Was it 4?
I'm not sure the years, but yeah, something along those lines. And if you look at the achievement caption of, so you have like obviously content and achievement and the percussion, like the achievement section box of the score sheet was probably some of the higher placing of the core those years. So obviously they were maxing out and doing well with the vehicle that they were given in the book and stuff like that. So yeah,
that one I agree. It's just got to be personal reasons and pursuing other things. So moving on from that one, the Madison Scouts parted ways with James Sparling and friends. I'm not
Dude,
really surprised.
that was all really interesting, like what that stuff, because basically the Scouts and Phantom did kind of like a flip flop, which is interesting. So James isn't no longer at the Scouts; he's at Phantom as a percussion. The phrase that they used was funny. Hold on, let me find it. He is there as an ensemble specialist. I was like,
what?
I've never heard that one before. Which, who knows what that means? Every group has a different meaning for what they call their caption head or their battery tech or their coordinator or whatever. But basically, James is at Phantom now, and the guys who were at Phantom, like Derek Shannon, are at Madison Scouts now.
Did Rob Ferguson make the jump to Scouts from Phantom?
Oh no, Rob is definitely still writing and arranging at Phantom.
Okay.
So James was arranging at Scouts, but now I'm assuming, and I don't know this just because I'm not sure what the role is going to be, is that he's going to be more of a battery caption head, like helping set the technique and the approach to the drum and dealing with like the tech staff and like cleaning, and which I'm kind of excited about because I feel like
we know he's good at that.
Yeah, he's really good at that. Like he was at Cadets there in like the 2000, I want to say like 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, those were the years around
there.
Air
range somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And they were nasty and played really well, and his idea or philosophy and approach to the drum, I feel like will do well with Rob's writing to kind of help crystallize that, or I don't know, clarify some of that, because a lot of Rob's writing and the texts that were there, they didn't play tap heights. I'll just say that they didn't play taps, and I know James is all about that.
Yep.
So
I think it's going to be good.
I think it'll help. Yeah.
So Derek Shannon and the other guy whose name escapes me took over at Scouts, and James is at Phantom now as some kind of battery overseer or whatever you want to call it. Who's writing at Scouts now? Derek Shannon and friends, or somebody else?
Derek is going to be the arranger / I don't know. He's going to write the book. I'm not sure if that means high school. That means front ensemble and battery. I don't know why I said high school. That's because I was reading his bio and the first word that was in it. But I know he also writes for like Legacy, who coincidentally just changed names also. Indoor. Yeah, and then Chris Murphy is the guy on the website. Maybe he's writing the front ensemble book. But yeah, those two dudes, I guess, are going to be heading up the new Madison Scouts percussion. It's interesting, some of these choices that are being made. They're definitely bold, but only time will tell how they're going to play out.
I think, just based on seeing Phantom a lot in Scouts last year, I think Phantom won this trade because, like we said, James is really good at cleaning a battery. And
yeah, for sure.
The writing, albeit a little too hard at Phantom from Rob the last couple of years, James's expertise in cleaning and running a battery section is going to lend itself to a higher level of achievement. I think Phantom's going to have a much cleaner year next summer because of this swap. Even if the arranger hasn't changed, he's just going to do a really good job at what he knows how to do.
Yeah, and I think it's going to like lend Rob just an extra avenue of a very experienced person to give him quality feedback on what the book is even before it hits the kids' hands. Like, hey, maybe we should check out this, like maybe we should not have all
vertical alignment in the writing.
Maybe we shouldn't have 15 quads, that sort of thing. Especially since James is a quad drummer, he'd probably be like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah. Yep. He definitely would have raised a red flag on that one. But, so that's pretty much our opinions on that. Let's move on to the Blue Stars. This is one that really surprised me.
Dude, yeah. And I take this one, I think, close to the heart, too, just because I love Eric. I don't know Eric super well, but I know him, and I've talked to him, and we've had conversations, and he's just like a great dude, and I feel like did a solid job in the time that he was there with what he was given.
Yes. Because your talent is limited, being that they do all their camps and recruiting primarily in the Midwest. Even though they have a Texas audition now, they have a California audition because most of their staff is out in Cali. The top level talent gets cannibalized by Bluecoats in the Midwest, BD,
Bluecoats even
Vanguard.
have a West Coast camp.
Yeah, but I don't know. To me, I mean, Aaron Bailey and I were talking about this because we realized, because he marched Blue Stars in 2014 or 13.
I think it was
one
14.
of those two. But he marched there, and so did I. In 2010, we had the still to date highest placing finish and potentially end of season drum score of any year. But the difference was these lines that Shriver had were way better than us. Like the percussion sections of the Blue Stars of the Shriver era were better than 2010 or anything before that. But the average level of the activity has risen so high, we would have been like 11th or 12th place if the bar was as high as it is now back in 2010. We finished 7th in drums, and I would go back and watch videos, and I was just kind of think how we weren't that good. We weren't bad.
Who was seventh this year? It's like cadets or something.
Yeah, and look how good they were. Infinitely better than us. So I really hope it wasn't like, well, you guys aren't finishing high enough. But even though the quality is way higher than it was in any years before that, which is why it just surprised me, you have to be elite, like truly elite, to finish top 8 in percussion nowadays.
Yeah, the top 8 is cutthroat as get out. And on top of that, it's not like their section was underachieving more than other sections in the core either. Like you look at the ordinals across the recap, and you're like, I mean, they're basically on par with the rest of the core, pretty much. Maybe slightly like a placement or so below, but I don't know. It didn't make sense to me, and for them to go a new direction if that was their decision to be like, hey, we're going to cut ties, or basically give them an ultimatum of we want this unless you do this sort of thing. Yeah. And then to bring in the staff that they did, I was like, I don't know any of these dudes. I know the one guy worked with like RCC is like a caption head this winter. I don't know. We'll see.
They're all West Coast dudes still, right?
Yeah, I think the majority of them are still all West Coast, which is also like, hey, like we basically traded what we had for something else, but also less, kind of, in my mind. I don't know.
They're probably less known than Shriver and his team. And they're going to have the same recruiting problem they did under Shriver. It's a bunch of West Coast guys recruiting for a Midwest core. And
yeah, this dude, like, it said he was the caption head at RCC. It's like, well, that's cool, but you're not going to get the dudes from RCC. They're all still going to go march BD or Bluecoats or Vanguard.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's just not going to help. And you're going to have the same kids, and who knows, maybe these guys will get the talent level you're still going to get to rise to the occasion and start beating some people. But I think it's going to be the same or worse.
Possibly. Dude, it's definitely a bold strategy. I've been throwing out that meme of Jason Bateman from Dodgeball a lot lately, being like, "What's a bold strategy, Cotton? Let's see how it plays out for him." Yeah,
it's just,
I don't know.
That just confused me to no end that they would.
I was surprised
push
too,
them out.
I feel like some of these groups that were making changes or adjustments to their percussion staff, and we're gonna maybe like shoot for, I don't know, bring in some other people like out of retirement to like, hey, we'll throw some cash if you're willing to jump back in the ring here.
Yeah.
Like a Brett Kuhn, or my biggest wish, which I don't think will ever happen because he doesn't need to, is that Jim Casella would come arrange for drum corps again, because I love Jim Casella's arranging.
Yeah.
Love it.
Definitely
so
very,
much.
very good.
But he doesn't need drum corps, but I feel like drum corps needs him.
Yep. I mean, the fact is, as everybody gets older, they have to make more money, and there's not a lot of money in drum corps except for a small handful of people. that are
It's
lucky
definitely
enough.
not. It's definitely not the tech staff. I can tell you that.
No, if you're a tech, you're not making anything.
Gosh, I was talking to some people that I've marched with when we were at DCI finals about what they made this summer teaching. I was just shaking my head like, oh my gosh. How did you afford to feed yourself?
Yeah, basically.
It's
dumb.
definitely for a love of the game mentality.
Yes.
So if anybody listening out there is ever marching and you feel like your techs are grinding on you, just go with it, because they're not out there to make money. They're just out there to help you.
Yep. They're not making a lot. So I think that's all I wanted to say about that. We talked about Blue Stars, Crossmen, Phantom, Scouts.
Those are the major ones. There's been some rumors floating around that are funny. Like I heard the rumor that Mac was leaving Cavaliers to go to BD.
Yeah, I heard that too.
It makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense, because Mac is
it's-
an arranger, and he arranges and composes, and he loves to do the battery and all that, and he may even do some of the front ensemble. I don't know. But if he would be going to BD, he definitely wouldn't be arranging, because that position of Scott Johnson, like him replacing Scott, because Scott's been there forever.
Yep.
I mean,
his years
that is
have to be
not
numbered.
Yeah, his years are getting close, I'm sure. But Scott doesn't do the arranging there. I mean, he may write some of the moments here and there, but Dave Glide still does the majority of it. So,
Yep.
But the only reason it does make sense is because Mac did march at Blue Devils, so he is a Blue Devil, so I get that. But maybe if Scott Johnson leaves, that is somebody who would step into that role.
And because Mac is so good at arranging,
Yeah.
maybe the horn arranger who does write the battery parts might just say, we'll make this part of the deal to get you to come over.
Maybe to sweeten the pot a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
it could be. But obviously, too, the Blue Devils have a setup and a process that they do that clearly works pretty well.
Yes, it does. Some years better than others, but it definitely gets the job done.
They're always in the conversation.
Mm-hmm. So, you want to shift gears a little bit, since we've touched on all the staff changes we've heard about it to this point?
Yeah, we kind of played catch up on the social media game, I guess.
Yeah, right. So yesterday actually was the first BOA regional of the BOA competitive season, and you watched a lot of it on the stream. The high school I work with went and competed and finished, I think, 8th in finals, which is pretty solid, so we had a pretty good day. But what did you tell me earlier because you got to catch the last few groups of the Texas regional, right?
Yeah, so I watched intermittently throughout the day. I was also teaching my group, but we got rained out, so I was able to make it back home and watch from you guys went on first.
Yeah.
In finals at the Oxford regional.
Unfortunately.
In Miami. Well, first out of 10. Sure, the judges can get it right.
Yeah.
But I watched pretty much all those groups, the top 10 there. And then I switched over and watched the last 4 groups go in the Texas regional, where Claudia Taylor Johnson was there. And after I switched over, so Carmel was the last group, which has a phenomenal high school band program. So Carmel was the last group that went on at the Oxford regional. And I was like, oh, yeah, they were good. And I switched over and watched the Texas schools. And I was like, is this even the same activity? Because they are just so much better. They just it was just it was unreal to me. I was like, I can't believe what I'm witnessing right now.
Yeah, that's what struck me being at the regional, seeing other groups warm up, and even well-known groups from this region in the BOA circuit. And we don't compete in BOA. Every few years, we just go to the regional to give the kids the experience. So we had fun, but what I noticed, the quality of percussion programs at the Oxford regional was not anything special. Carmel has a ton of money. They're an army of a band and an army of a percussion section, relatively speaking, in the high school arena. But it just didn't impress me. I was like, there's only 6 weeks left in the competitive season, maybe 7 or 8 for BOA, I don't know. And I just expected more. Centerville was pretty good. I mean, Tim Fairbanks, Josh Brickey, and I think Mike Kavanaugh run that ship. and they were pretty impressive. But I really didn't get to see Carmel. How were they on the stream?
Carmel was good. They played well, but at the same time, like I was watching, I was like, yeah, this just seems pretty. I don't want to say stock, but pretty average for like. I was like, yeah, this is a good high school.
Yeah.
And then I switched over and watched a group called Seven Lakes High School in Texas, and then I watched Claudia Taylor Johnson, and I swear, Claudia Taylor Johnson had the hardest high school drill I've ever seen on a marching band. Like in high school, I was like, these kids are absolutely running. And the band is huge, like enormous, and they're just taking up the whole field. The drum line is playing. They're playing like crescendo triplet rolls, and I'm just like, I can hear that. I can hear the quality through the stream right now. Like, that's insane. And I was just like, yeah, the demand and what they're asking those kids to do is not even close. I feel like Texas should just, if they started to pump out more like high school indoor lines, they would compete with like Chino Hills regularly.
Yeah.
It's like on that level of quality and also content. They do a contest in Texas called like those drumline battles. I know they do one every year. It's called like Dripping Springs Drumline, blah, blah, blah. You can YouTube it. But the groups that are playing at that, it's like mid-September, and they're coming out and just nailing stuff. Jeez. And it's hard. It's impressive, and I'm like, this is awesome. Watching a bunch of little high school kids throw down.
Yeah, it makes me sad that the Midwest is so far behind other areas of the country, because there's really no reason. It's just the culture.
It's just culture, yeah.
Yeah, it's the culture is just completely different. I don't know. Do you mean when you say the culture from a work ethic standpoint, or is it just?
I think some of it is socioeconomic. I mean, because for every phenomenal Texas band that you see, there's also parts of Texas that are similar to an Eastern Kentucky where it's not as affluent in their financial ability as programs. I mean, we see the Mecca, like Chino Hills and then Ayala and Arcadia. Those are like the Mecca groups of California, but I'm sure there's groups there too that struggle, that have small programs that don't get to march 7 snares, 4 quads, and 5 basses that are on the similar size to what we see around here, 4, 2, and 5. I mean, but we don't see those groups because why would we? We don't live there. We don't work there. We don't teach there. We just see the cream of the crop that gets brought to the social media or the YouTube light. So
yeah, so at the end of the day, it's just they have the money to have all the nice equipment, pay as many staff members as they need to be as successful as they possibly can, and that's the result. They're just really good.
You got to think too, like if you're thinking in terms of BOA, they have 4 classes, like A, 2A, 3A, 4A. There's only like 2 high schools in the entire state of Kentucky that would qualify as a 4A size band by BOA standards.
BOA is school size, right?
It's school size, but they only use 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, so sophomore through junior. And you have to have more than 1,750, I believe is the number, in those 3 grades. Huh. And there's only like 2 schools in this state that would even be big enough to do that. So here you have like all the Texas schools where most of them compete in that higher class because they have 4,000 kids that go to one high school, where here, if you have 2,000 in all 4 grades, you're considered large.
Yeah.
So it's just different.
Yep.
Kentucky is very much a mecca of the small band. I'll say that. Like, we crank out small quality bands rather than quality big bands.
Yeah. It was good to see that a Kentucky band did hang in the top 10. Like, there were 2. Russell County.
They finished 5th overall at that region.
Yeah, Russell County got 5th. We got 8th. There were a couple other smaller schools from Kentucky that were there that didn't make finals. South Oldham High School, Christian Academy of Louisville, Bourbon County. But Bourbon County won 1A, so it's one example of a small band doing their thing. Although,
like Adair County, when Adair County goes to BOA Grand Nationals, they have won Class 1A multiple times because they're a really good small band.
Yep, it's good stuff.
But it's just different.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we touched on everything we wanted to today, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
It's short and sweet, kind of.
Yeah, short and sweet. Just be about a little under 30 minutes, so not too long of a listen for anyone, but we'll go ahead.
And it gave us the opportunity to kind of test out this remote.
Yeah, we'll be definitely taking advantage of this in the near future when it comes to having guests on. I think we'll talk to Dan Shack, I think, first, and see if we can call him in and do one. So I guess we'll just close this out now. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow on Podbean, and that reminds me, I'm still trying to get the iTunes stuff situated. I've got some time this week. I'm going to try to either have to call Apple or whatever to find a workaround to get us on podcast services on iTunes. So that's still in the works. Obviously, we've hooked up remote recording to have more interesting guests in the future. So yeah, subscribe to YouTube, follow on Podbean, Instagram, Facebook. It's all just Aged Out Podcast, and it'll come right up. And we will be back in a couple weeks with the next episode.
Yep, for sure, man.
You got to say peace.
Peace.
Perfect.